Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Live, or the replay, whatever one you're watching. I'm going to be putting on some finishing touches on this scene. There are some things that stand out to me that this piece could use in terms of texture and layering and more contrast, etc. We did the preliminary parts of this scene yesterday, and I ran out of time, but sometimes it's good to, I don't know, give something a night just to, or, I don't know, whatever amount of time it takes to, I don't know, get a little bit of distance so that you can look at it with some fresh eyes. So I was trying to decide if I wanted some clouds in here, just something to soften up the visuals on here. Because these columns, of course, are all hard-angled, firm-edged visuals, shapes, and so on and so forth. So we could really use some softening of form in here, just to contribute some textural variation and contrast to the piece. Now we kind of have that with the hello Froggy Fresh, how are you today? We already have some softness in the forms of those kind of free-form clouds in there, but I thought we could add in a lot more impact with some of these soft billowy ones with the cloud cumulus, if it will stamp out on top of the white brilliance ink, okay? It'll stamp on top of this holographic, but this holographic is very loud and so on and so forth, so if you just stamp on directly onto that, you have to stamp onto there with a decent amount of contrast, and it, doesn't stand out as much as blocking it out first with white brilliance pigment ink, and then putting your imagery on top of it. Hello, Kat. Coming along. We'll see if we can really kind of add some zip to this, which it needs. But I don't know. Yeah, some other types of things. I was thinking about this scene last night, and I was thinking, yeah, one of the things I want more definition between the figure and the background too, so that I can add in things like highlights to it and so, things like that. So with that in mind, and the I don't know, whatever the the spirit of exploration, let's give this a shot here. I'm going to mask off my figure a little bit and stamp out these clouds. Let me see. It looks like I can get a full cloud in here, just like this. And let's see if this prints out. I'm always kind of curious to know what the impressions will look like on top of Brilliance ink. I think it looks pretty good. Okay. Now I stamped that out in a light blue, and we'll fill in some of this extra space with some colored pencils, so I'm not really, being too fussy about masking, I don't know, whatever, accuracy, okay? Because that all gets filled in anyway. Okay, now what I'm doing right here is I'm taking this cloud stamp. This is what I teach people in my first class in using this stamp, because it's the epitome of kind of blending ease if you utilize the right technique. So it's just a matter of blotting off some of this. You're just blotting it off if you're blending it into something else. You don't have to do that if you're just kind of building up a cloud form. But this is something where I'm stamping it into other objects, or I'm transitioning it into open space. So you don't want to have like a real firm line there. Now that tone is there for a reason, but I don't know. There's probably a dozen videos that I've done on this stamp that you can take a look at the cloud cumulus if you want. It's the, there's isolated versions of the utilization of this. Okay, so I'm building up some of these cloud forms around on the perimeter here. And, what I think I'm going to put one up there too. Hello, Sam Hawkins! I was thinking about you with those vivid pads, after the video last night. I was saying, man, those pads are still in use by some. And like I was just telling someone else yesterday that was, asking me about Vivid pads. I said, hey, well, she said she hadn't stamped in 8 years, and what am I using these days? And they asked about the Vivid, and she said she had a lot of her pads were dry, and I don't know, just some of them were wrecked, which I know what she means. She meant, the materials were degraded. But I just said, hey, if those pads are still in the trash, and if these, the manufacturers are well, I guess they don't have to still be in business, but you just have to be able to have access to the re-inkers. You can still use your pads and everything like that. I don't know. She would know that. I would presume. She's she was stamping back in the, she's a long time stamper. I don't know. I should put a survey out there as far as what people are using these days, as far as their favorite pads go. Okay, so we have a little bit of that structure around on the perimeter. I don't know how much of those clouds we're going to be able to see kind of in the end result. If I put a little bit of a stronger vignette around the side with some darker tones. But I think those clouds are working in here. Now let's do it where we stamp the cloud, maybe in here too, like that. Maybe something like, I can just come like that, but I think it might be better if I go like that and like that right here, coming down. It's just a matter if I have enough of that white pigment ink laid out down right up in here. Okay, and I'm going to use a quote stamp right in the middle here too somewhere, so let's see how that goes. Okay, so if this is internal light right here, one of the things that I didn't mention when I was doing this, was I have the billows kind of, pointing inward towards my light source, so that when you stamp on this side, you take it like this, positioning this in the direction of that illumination. So coming from up here, what you do is you spin the stamp around like that, and these clouds up top will be bottom lit, side lit, and top lit. Okay? If you're using the unmounted version of this stamp, what you do is you just put an arrow on the back of this, pointing in the direction of the, light source, I guess you could say. If you don't use it too much often and whatnot, and you kind of, what did I have that arrow on there? You maybe can write on the back of this thing like light source that way or something like that. So if you have a moon here and you're stamping the clouds out this way, or whatever, sun, lightning, anything like that, just point in that direction. All right, let's see. Okay. All right, let's see if I've added enough of the white pigment ink in there for this to even show up. There's enough of it, I guess, to get a little bit of that showing. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, it prints out just fine on the printable vinyl too. It has a little bit of that shimmer coming through. Actually, that looks pretty good, I think. Right there. So you have some of that cloud in the white area, and then it goes into the shimmering area. I think that looks pretty good. Let's add another one right in here too, I think. I think it looks better with the cumulus in there as opposed to just the white on this case. Just because there's not, the scene isn't real dark, so this white right here isn't showing up that much, okay? I was mentioning yesterday that this is a holographic, vinyl. It's glitter, but it's, for what it is, it does show all those colors like that, but it's relatively mellow, in comparison to a lot of other types of holographic foils and things like that that are a lot louder, where if you put white pigment ink on top of it, it really stands out. But on this one, it's really, there's not a lot of contrast in between just the bare paper and that white. So yeah. All right, so in other words, so getting something on there can contribute to I don't know, whatever the texturing, I guess. Hello, the Hodgkins. Is it Linda, Harold, or both? Good to see ya. Give a shout out to Maine. All right, so there's the other clouds. See that right in there? Like that. It's kind of filling it in a little bit too, isn't it? All right, it created more depth in there, I think, too. It looks like it's going back into, that space in there. Not outer space or something like that, but just space in terms of distance. So, all right. And that was a salvia blue, so kind of any type of light blue. It just has to be, dark enough where you can see it over the top of that. You can see it's really delicate, so I probably wouldn't go too much lighter than that. Like, I don't know if like a Distress Ink tumbled glass or something like that would show up on there, or like a Memento, what is that one? Summer Sky may not show up, so it's maybe something a little bit darker. Hello to both of you. Froggy Fresh has some cheese that they're sharing with everyone. Hello in Perth. All right, what time is it there now? Obviously, I don't remember. I don't know. I'm not calculating, when you say that before. Okay, that's an excellent hour difference here. Let me see. I think what was it? The last time you were on, it was around noon, I think. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so we have these clouds down here, and I think we've created a decent amount of textural kind of contrast within this space. It's certainly more depth. And okay, so we have these little areas like right in here that we need to fill in, okay? So just to blend in the clouds a little bit more and to create that contrast in here. So let's see here. Let's go in with colored pencils. And again, if you haven't seen me do this before, or watching on replay for the first time or something like that, I'm coloring with the colored pencil the white brilliance ink that has been applied on here, okay? I'm not really coloring printable vinyl, okay? 8:04 a.m. Early. Well, thanks for joining in. If you drink coffee, grab a cup. Unless you already had that. I don't know if you're a coffee drinker. I don't know. I got real sensitive to caffeine because I don't have it very often. So I don't drink coffee as much. I do like it though. I drink decaf. Okay, so okay, now that's not the color that I'm going for, but what I'm doing is I'm building up through, the lighter tones of blue to the darker tones. Okay, so let's see here. Let's go in. Now, I wish I had kind of a good solution for adding on a perimeter color, outside of dye-based inks. I mean, not dye-based inks, colored pencil. But it'd be great to go in here with some dye-based inks maybe and to sponge on some color. I don't know, maybe I haven't done like cotton ball. You have to have it really, really soft as far as an application goes. Now, I'm not someone that utilizes the those blending brushes, makeup brushes very much, just because I don't like the rate at which those inks are applied with that type of tool onto cardstocks or something like that. But on something like this, where I'm going for a really light application of it, that would be probably a really good use of it. But let me try with the cotton ball with the dye-based inks, okay? I wouldn't do this with onto cardstocks again. It just applies too slowly. But for something like this, maybe it'll work, you know, rather well. I don't know. I'm hoping. Let's see how it goes. I think it's applying. I want it to apply really slowly. Yeah, it's definitely not applying fat. Let me see if it's okay. It's like it's what you would think, you know. It's like a cotton ball, you know, super light touch that barely shows. So yeah, I guess that's working pretty good. I say that because the printable vinyls and Brilliance ink that you would apply ink on something like this, it goes on really fast and it dries really fast because printable surfaces are designed to grab media and to dry it quickly, okay? In this case, it dries water-based media very quickly, so... All right, so what we're doing here with this, okay, so no tool for the printable vinyl. You know, if you want to apply something relatively slowly or whatever, carefully, methodically, this looks pretty good. In fact, I think I might be able to use this with black ink on here. I like to tone in my perimeter of my scenes, but mostly the four corners, okay, just to bring more attention into the center. It'd be like, you know, it's like staging or something like that. If you go to a stage, like a play, you know, it's not all illuminated all out, you know, the center, you know, the lighting is usually kind of focused in, you know, wherever the action is, you know, whatever's going on stage. But, you know, it has, you know, it's usually spotlit and everything like that. And that's how I look at scenes, cards. Okay, it's like a stage for your whatever, your actors and whatnot, rather than just a smaller part of a greater overall. Like, you know, there's something else out here. This is like a world unto itself right here. And it's just better for, you know, like compositional containment. You're saying that, you know, your world here is complete, you know. It's just a complete statement on whatever location. All right. So the cotton ball, huh? You're seeing you're watching a world first here. Okay, now that being said, maybe I shouldn't have added. Actually, that did apply over the top of it. I didn't think that was going to apply over the top of the waxy colored pencil down here, but I think that this blue went over the top of it. It might wipe off really easy. I don't know, because I just applied, you know, water-based media over wax. But well, I won't rub out, you know, go over it with my finger then, you know, to, you know, wipe it off. It probably adhered. I don't know. I'm kind of surprised about that. All right, so that is that. Let's see. Let's go with a little bit of a darker tone. I think. Okay, here's what I'm thinking about right now. I'm kind of wondering if I should go in with a darker blue, which would be a brighter blue. I don't have like a duller, darker blue, I don't think. Maybe... Let's go with the... Let me try the Memento Danube blue, okay? Memento colors, they're not as bright as Marvy tones, okay? The equivalent Marvy tones. So like a kind of a navy-ish blue. let's try this one here. Okay, so that is the difference. Can you see that difference right there from over here? It's a little bit darker, but it's not like a super bright blue, like I said. Not that you couldn't go brighter, but I just don't want it on this one, I don't think. Hello, Candy. That's funny. All right, let's see. Okay, that looks like a pretty good blue there, I think. See, to me, it's drawing more attention right in here, too. That stands out by contrast, lighter. Just by contrast. It's not lighter physically, but it just looks a little bit lighter the more contrast you bring into your scene. See, it's kind of light coming through there, so I'm not going to go all the way out here. I want some light kind of streaming through some areas of the clouds, I think. All right, so this is one of those things. I wasn't quite sure what kind of, I guess, techniques I could use on printable vinyls that have been applied with Brilliance ink, but this is kind of opening my eyes a little bit in terms of, how we can take the, whatever the processes a little bit further in terms of how you can apply inks on them. This is interesting to me. And the cotton ball application. Now, see, I wouldn't, like I said, you probably wouldn't use this if I had to do a vast area, but I'm just doing these like small strips on here, for the most part. This is going to make things go a lot faster than just doing things only by colored pencil here. Okay, so that is that. Now let's do something with those columns, and let's push object lighting in here a little bit more. Okay, so what I mean by that is, let's take this like this and add some tone onto the opposite sides of our light source on the columns. I already have it down there, but this is just going to push it more with this additional lighting, or shading, I guess, defining the light. Okay. Alright, that is the Danube blue, which I think served the piece nicely. Okay, let's add a little bit more shading down here too. When do you know to move on to your next color? I always say when you've achieved, you know, whatever, super saturation using your existing color. If you can add more of the color that you're working on and have it get darker, brighter, whatever, then just add more of that. But then when you've, you know, at some point in time with whatever color you're using, because these are transparent colors and you've achieved kind of the full saturation of that one, I can add, you know, 300 more layers of that same color and it's not going to get any darker. Okay, so that's when you know to move on to your next tone if you're working through a value, you know, range from light to dark. Okay. All right, so that is that. I'm wondering if I should go to black now or if I should use, let's try. Okay, this is going to be a lot darker with, oh, this is blue. I thought this was the Prussian blue. Where's my, okay, that's Prussian blue down there. So far so good with these blues here. I wasn't going to go so bright, but I like how this is looking, so I think I will use a little bit more. Turkey, yeah, Turkey and Syria. They said that they weren't, that count there, they said it was based on the people that they can identify, so they weren't even counting in the statistics the ones that weren't identified, which, you know, for I don't know why, but unless they are, but a few days that official count was only of the people that they, you know, that they knew the identity of. So yeah, that was insane. It's so crazy watching all those buildings crumble like that. All right, let's see. All right, that darker blue isn't like a super dark blue, or bright blue, I should say. That looks pretty good. Okay, no, I'm mentioning on this kind of brighter tones and things like that. I didn't want to get like a super bright color out here with these tones that I'm adding because I want this holographic, you know, color in here to, you know, play the biggest role in terms of, I don't know, whatever saturated tones in there are. So all this in here is just kind of a, you know, it's the most work, but it's kind of providing the framework for our, you know, focal point in the scene, which would end up being that patterning of this paper right here, because that's the most exciting thing about this card right here. You know, that's going to be the attention getter. You know, if someone picked up this card right here, I think they would look at that first and they, oh wow, like that, and then they would look around it like this. Okay, you know, all this imagery and everything like that would be secondary to the to, you know, holographic types of surfaces. They're just, you know, reflective and changing and shimmery and whatnot. And I'm guessing that would always be the case with something like that type of paper. I guess people, I don't know, if someone's like, you know, seen it a million times, maybe they wouldn't look at that, you know, the same way. But I don't know, I still do. All right, here we go with the darker blue there. I'm finding that the cotton ball or the media surface combination, something in here, it's just this, the blending of everything is like super easy right here. You know, maybe it's the cotton ball. I don't know. Maybe that it's going on so slow, maybe. But, you know, you don't get any like harsh edges anywhere. Um, and again, maybe it's due to the rate of application. I don't know. Or the media, you know, combination. I'm not sure. What kind of cheese do you have, Froggy Fresh? All right, this is Prussian blue. All right, I need to be a little bit careful about the Prussian blue. I can see it's, you know, it's applying really fast. Prussian blue, for some reason, the chemistry of it and or the whatever, the viscosity of it, it's a little bit different. It penetrates really fast. Can you see the difference between that side and this side? And you can see the brightness of the Prussian blue too. It's quite a bit. It does this. It's not just on here, but it's on, you know, card stocks. It could be, I don't know, what's it? Sometimes it's, you know, because it's dark, maybe it'll be the third, fourth, fifth color that I'm adding on top of something. And even if your page is a little bit, you know, the surface and pulp is a little bit super saturated with ink, if you go in with Prussian blue, it just applies right through all the other colors that have been already been applied. You know, so you can get a really good application of it. But that being said, if you're ever using it, you know, just kind of take it into your cards at a little bit of a more controlled rate, slower rate, most of the time, okay? I'm guessing that Prussian blue is probably one of those colors in reinker form that they would still have. I think their Marvy discontinued their pads a long time ago, but they had their reinkers for sale, you know, until they ran out of inventory on them. Marvy pads are really juicy to begin with, so, you know, one inking lasts a long time. So a lot of people didn't even have reinkers because, you know, they just last forever, okay? So Uchida has had those, you know, a really long time, but they are starting to run out of the kind of the more popular colors. You know, people are ordering direct. They might be on other sites and everything like that, but you know, Prussian blue I don't think was ever, you know, terribly, you know, popular color. And then even when I'm using it, I don't re-ink my Prussian blue very often because it's one of the last colors that I use. So it's usually on the perimeter of the page like this, where the lighter colors I'm going into the scene much farther from the edges. So those ones I go through really fast. So things like the salvia blue colors from like Marvy. Not saying that I was, you know, a huge influence or anything like that, but I noticed those ones were, you know, that color was gone. All right, so that is that. And right after that one, there's nothing darker in terms of blue tones than just going straight to black. So let's see, let's go in here a little bit more. All right, there we go. I've joked around with people before, in the spirit of, repurposing of objects for the crafting world. Sometimes, repurposing like everyday things for the crafting world. I was joking that there's some company out there that's going to put 10 of these like cotton balls into a thing, call them ink blending clouds. All right, this is black. Ooh, that is pretty dark really fast. Much faster than I thought. So, the faster something applies, the slower rate at which you want to apply it, just so that you have a little bit more control over it. I knew I wanted a stronger vignette on this one. I didn't anticipate when I first started doing this today that I would be able to get this degree of it on this surface. I thought I would have to do it all with colored pencil and just have a little bit of a kind of, darker edge to it. But if we can work through all these different tones like that, that's going to be really benefit us in terms of, I don't know, just the variation that you can achieve on top of this type of surface. You can't do very much on holographic cardstocks, okay? But this printable vinyl again, I don't know. It's really surprising me in terms of its capabilities with, what traditional, card making media and techniques. But instead, and the good thing about it, instead of having to work, just do these types of things on a white piece of paper, we can do it on, on top of that, there. The time of day as I do this seems to get later and later. I'm not talking about physically, I'm talking about in the scene or here, but the darker you go in the scene, it seems like we went from high noon or something like that. Now it kind of, I don't know. I don't know if this is nighttime or daytime here now. I'm kind of leaning towards, I think it looks more like night to me, like a very well lit night or something like that with rainbows up in the sky. But with this vignette here, um, and it looks a little bit darker to me. I like the mood of this piece a little bit more now. For this setting right here with the the figure. Okay, now here's the thing. One of these things that's going on relatively slowly, and just about when I was about to say it, you really have to kind of work it to go darker. That one last step right there, really darken that up pretty good. So. Maybe you have to kind of apply it and allow it to dry, and then apply it again, and then it goes on, whatever, in a thicker application, maybe. All right, so that is the black. I think that is it as far as the tones go. With that, Walnut Creek cheddar cheese. Hello, Kat. Hello, Jen. I just noticed we had more people join in here. Oh, I'll ask Nancy about that with the Catherine Poolers. Walnut Creek cheddar cheese. I like a sharp cheddar. I like all cheddars. I like all cheeses, actually. Oh yeah, very technical with the tools, right, Nicole? That is shocking, there, Kat. I don't know. I don't know if it's shocking, but that surprised me. I didn't see that in the news today, or did it just die right now? Wow. Were Marvy ink pads foam or cloth or what? They're foam. Um, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. I, can anyone help out Candy here in terms of a good blank pad to use with the Marvy reinker? Now, I think it was there's a website out there that has some of those Marvy blank pads. They did the last time I checked, and I can't remember the name. It was like 123 something.com. Um, their website looks like as old as my interface on my website, done like the 90s, you know. But they had a bunch of, they even had Marvy pads for sale with the color coding on them. But they might have had the blank pads still. I know people were buying blank pads from them, Marvy blank pads, up until like even a few months ago. So, yeah, I wouldn't think the alcohol pads would be good for the dye-based inks. I don't know. Uh, Hodgkins, the duo. Do you guys carry blank Marvy pads at all? I don't know if you guys ever did, but I think you guys used to carry Marvy inks, right? I don't know. Harold and Linda Hodgkins have a store out in Maine. Yeah. Hello, Kay. Oh, is the Jimmy Carter news maybe not accurate? Or I don't know, heard? What? What kind of ink pad? Okay, oh, Marvy used a foam pad. It's a nice dense foam pad that lasted 25, 30 years before they started disintegrating. That being said, I have a lot of pads that are starting to. That blue that I just used right here, it's breaking down, so it's kind of, I don't know, I think I can show you here, but it's indented, meaning the foam structuring is starting to break down. So I don't use it to make impressions anymore, but I can dab my whatever ink applicator into there and then apply it like that, you know. When this one goes, oh, maybe you can see it right there, but this one's like totally, see that's like totally indented in there. But yeah, foam, dense foam. That's what the question I had about those Pooler inks. I was wondering if those Pooler pads, they looked like they had not the type of material as Marvy's, but it looked like the same material as these Vivid pads. And the Vivid pads are also foam, like a dense foam. But I saw a photograph of one of those Catherine Pooler pads, and I thought, oh, is that a foam pad on there? Because if it is, the Vivid ones, are excellent as well. Marvy and Vivids, I think, had the best types of materials used for, you know what I mean? I mean, fabrics, I mean, aren't bad, but well, I guess foam is a fabric, but the foam, the dense foam, I thought had kind of a greater longevity, and I guess it doesn't really apply to pads these days, but some of those early foam material, I don't know what they're, cloth or something like that, pads, they had, sometimes I would get kind of a breakdown with them to some degree, and I would get little it's not a fur ball, I guess it's a cloth ball on my stamps, and you know, you imprint them and you get the little thing on there. I mean, I haven't had that in a long time. Like, you know, Stazon's you know, fabric pad too. You know, I don't know. I'm not really thinking about that these days, but I just tend to think that the foam, you know, is just a little bit superior to cloth. But like I said, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's antiquated thinking. It's not like I'm having a problem with cloth pads, you know, or I haven't in years. All right, so let's get a quote stamp in here. Trying to get that relatively level and hoping that I don't stamp it out at like a 10-degree angle or something. I don't know. I never do a 10-degree, but you know, even if it's off by, you know, 2 or 3 degrees, it's not that great. Okay, so I don't know if you can read that. Dreams are like stars. You may never touch them, but if you follow them, they will lead you to your destiny. And I thought that would be a good sentiment for this, because it's like this little figure is kind of dreaming right here, or sleeping, you know. All right. All right, so let's do some fine tuning on here too. So I just, with my colored pencil, I can't remember now, you know, whatever, half an hour ago was too long ago. But I think I added my light blue colored pencil on the perimeter like that. But see, to get a little bit of tone behind this figure here, I want this figure to kind of come out from the background a little bit more, which means that you have to make the area behind them. Well, one of the things that you could do is make the background a little bit, you know, create more contrast between this figure, and especially the highlighted areas, the lit areas on the figure, and make them a little bit darker. So it's not that I want these clouds to be darker, but I want the figure in front of them to look lighter. So we're creating that contrast here. So this is a pretty good match for that blue down there. This one's called Blue Violet right here, but just kind of a lighter kind of application of it. All right, so the figure's kind of standing out a little bit more. You see the figure's shoulder, where it was real light behind the figure before. It didn't stand out enough, so you just put that contrast back there. And the darker you make the area behind there, the more that figure should, or the highlighted areas will stand out. So sometimes you're done it, you know, you're not necessarily just shading for, I don't know, what you might consider maybe a realistic light or something like that, but you're shading for emphasis on other objects around something. Now, I can't really do it, well, I guess I could, but let's say, for example, I make this cloud right here a little bit darker right here, then this column, the illuminated area of this column should stand out a little bit more. I don't know, maybe I'll do a little bit of that here. Actually, it's not a bad idea to do a lot more of it, because as I'm doing this, I'm kind of eradicating some of that line there from my initial impression of the column that I stamped in here last night for kind of registration of where I was going to apply that white pigment ink. You can watch the replay, what I did with that, yesterday. But that was a big part of the experiment of this scene here. Testing out some new things, whatever, techniques and processes in this piece. All right. I would have thought, did I use black here on these columns with the cotton ball? I don't think I did I? Because I'm able to get darker with this blue. So if I did, I don't know, maybe I already did. Let's do it again, a little bit more here. Yeah, I don't think I used black on here. Oops, I overmasked here a little bit. Or undermasked, I should say. Or overmasked? Yeah, maybe overmasked. I put the paper too close up to the column here. Okay, the black is going on. Okay, so yeah, the column's just getting a little bit darker there. So it's kind of reinforcing that lighting direction in here. I'm wondering, you know what I'm thinking? I just thought about this. I think because I'm applying these inks over the top of the white Brilliance ink, that's on the surface down there. I don't know. I think that applying this, Brilliance is a water-based pigment ink, okay, and so are dye-based inks. I think what's happened here a little bit is when I'm applying the dye-based inks over on this Brilliance ink, I think it's going on, it looks a little bit darker, and then I think it's soaking in to that Brilliance ink, white Brilliance ink, so it's looking a little bit lighter as it dries, which might be a good thing because, if you go too dark, when you're applying something, it'll lighten up a little bit, and then you can adjust accordingly. You can add more, okay, on there if you need to. But I think that, I think that's what happens. That's what's happening here. So, I mean, it's just a minor thing. It's not like making it, going from, it's not going from like a 90% gray or something like that in terms of darkness to like a 70%, but it's like, I don't know, like a 5%, 7% change maybe. All right, so that being said, one of the things that I've lost over here, okay, because I've used a lot of darker tones than the color that I stamp my clouds in, I can't really see my cloud texturing over here anymore. And if I want to get that back in there, what you do is you take that same cloud stamp, but now you stamp it right over the top of that, but you do it in a darker tone, okay, because it's colored in darker colors, so you've lost, that value of that image out here, the texturing of that image. So you can stamp it in a darker tone too. So let's just go in with the black and try it out. I'm thinking this might be a little bit too dark, so what I'll do is I'll wipe it off the stamp before I stamp it out. Okay, what I'm doing here is what I'm doing on the opposite side on the rubber is I'm wiping it off roughly in this whole area right here and then right over here, okay? And then I'm kind of dabbing into this area too, so there's less ink right up here, okay? Because if I stamp it out and it's too light, you can always go with a darker impression. But if I stamp a really dark impression on there, there's not really much you can do. I guess you can go over it with white ink again and just obliterate it and start over. But I don't want to do all that toning in there again, so, you know. I'd rather stamp it out lighter and be able to stamp it out again too, rather than stamping out darker and, having to deal with that. Okay, so that is about right, I think. So see that right in there? So it's a little bit of a darker texture, so we'll add one, somewhere out that way. So darker clouds in the darker areas. Okay. Okay, maybe one more right in here. It's kind of fine tuning it, but if I see something coming out the way that I want it to, or it's improving something, I don't know. I tend to just try to max out on those types of little fine tuning adjustments. Okay, let's see. Oh, goodbye to Kat. She's probably already gone. Okay, Harold used to carry those. No, Marvy discontinued those blank pads, so they're just out of them. Yeah, these pads last forever, don't they, Harold? That's one good thing about the Marvy pads. Well, there's a lot of good things about them, but the longevity of them. I mean, kind of pads in general. But those Marvy pads, 25, 30 years of, pretty heavy usage, because I used to use them in those workshops too, And, so they were getting used a lot on a weekly basis, make and takes, demonstrations. Yeah, just awesome stuff. I love it I love tools that just work, like a long time. Rather than kind of whatever the strategies are these days by not crafting manufacturers, but just manufacturers in general for like appliances. I have this old refrigerator that was bought in 1994. Never had a problem with it. Never had to do anything to it. I never even cleaned off the coils underneath. Okay. And something, went wrong with it. And the repair job was a couple $100. And I asked the appliance guy, I said, well, what do you think about that? He said, to tell you the truth, he said the newer refrigerators, they only last like 5 or 6 years before they have, like, you either have to replace them or, they find themselves doing repairs on that type of thing all the time. Some things are just, he said, they're just so broken down that the repair would be so expensive. So, their clients just, get a new one. But I don't know. And then that's what I was watching, because I was thinking about replacing, but I just, he said, the old ones are just like, he said they're like tanks, There's work forever, hardly any problems, and if they are, they're pretty minor. All right. Let's use this wiping motion right here. This is pretty good. So, Marvy pads are like tanks. right, so there we go. We're getting a little bit more kind of atmosphere and mood to this scene. I like that kind of floating. When I stamp stuff, when I stamp word stamps on top of holographics, foils, or just reflective surfaces, to me they look really 3D. Because that holographic type of paper is supposed to look deep and spatial. So especially when you stamp word stamps, I find it looks like it's hovering, you know, in space over the top of the background. So I really love doing that type of thing on there. All right, so that's all the coloring and shading on this. So things like highlights on here are relatively simple. A lot of times when I'm doing white cardstock and I'm doing some sort of a scene on them, I usually like to add in a lot of highlights with the colors out of the color scheme, okay? But I don't have like a bunch of flowers and grassy areas on something like this, so I think white should suffice in terms of the highlighting, and just, extra detailing should be, it probably be all that's needed in here. I don't know, I can't think of other colors that I would use on here. There's other things that I want to do on here, though, in terms of dimension, but the highlighting should be pretty simple, straightforward. I only use color box. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking color blind. I was thinking, yeah, you must mean color box. Yeah, Clear Snap. I sure miss Clear Snap. I was just talking about Clear Snap with someone, when was it? I don't know, whatever, 2 days ago. Clear Snap was such a great company. Clear Snap was one of those manufacturers that truly innovated, okay, and made things specifically for this industry. There's a lot of companies out there that they just repurpose something, and repackage it for this industry. But they were making, molds and whatever mold injection types of things, like those pedal things and stuff like that. It's their own kind of cases and everything like that for their inks and whatnot. I mean, it's not the most economical way to go, because if you use just cases that already exist, but they wanted to go, they do their own thing, the color box stylus tools and everything like that. Just fantastic. And they're just, I don't know, they're a really great company to work with too. I didn't ask them, but they saw me using their stylus tools, and I was using them in the way that they hadn't really kind of considered before in terms of just an ink application tool, because the color box stylus tools were made in types of shapes and things like that, like a diamond or a heart or something like that, to make foam stamping impressions from, a heart or a star. I don't think clover. I think that clover's Lucky Charms, but yeah, they saw me demonstrating at, they were based out of Washington, so they saw me demonstrating, utilizing those tools at the Puyallup Heirloom Convention up there. And, whatever the marketing guy, I don't know if he talked with me there or gave me his number, or if he just contacted me via email, looked me up afterwards, because maybe that's what it was. He said something like, you were busy, so, he says, if you ever need anything, or he liked the, seeing their stuff being used like that, and he said, if I ever need anything, let me know. And I was using their tools for in my workshops. So I was going through a lot of them, and I just said, hey, buying these at whatever wholesaler, just retail, to use in the workshops, it's costing a lot. So he said, well, maybe you can do something. So he created a product, a separate product where I could buy their color box stylus tool nibs in bulk. And he said, hey, if we don't have to package these, that's going to save us a ton of time and we can give it to you at a better price. And which is perfect for me. So I would just package them up myself instead of in little packages of 3. We're using them for color application processes. So I'd package them up in a package of 10, because you can use like 5 tools, 1 tip on each side, so 10 tips. And, people that are using it like that are going through them a lot faster, although those tools could last like 10 years as well, if you didn't kind of abuse them. But it was just kind of nice having a company, kind of ask you, you know, if there's anything you need, and whatnot. So I was really shocked when they went out of business. When was it? 3 or 4 years ago at this point in time. Okay, let's see. The Catherine Puller pads are foam. Okay. That is good. I don't have them either, so I just don't know. I'm just going off that one photo that I saw with those. Tools that work are generally the best ones. I hear that. What are tools? What are some tools? Maybe, I don't know, maybe I don't like to get negative in these videos or something like that, but some tools that didn't work very well were those early forms of gel pens, right? Everyone seems to be, that seems to be a consensus, you know. I've bought some gel pens in the past. I think when the gel pen technology came out here, everyone, all these different companies wanted to have gel pens. So they just didn't, and they were rushing them to market, I think, because sometimes I'd buy a gel pen right off the shelf and it was clogged, It didn't work right off the shelf. And then sometimes when they worked, they didn't work for very long after whatever, opening them or whatever. They seem to have just a really short shelf life. I mean, I guess that's the only thing that I can really think of that didn't work too well. That, like one of those obvious things answers to that. I mean, there's certainly been some questionable products, that work, but I've kind of wondered as far as the viability of them. Okay, so adding in some extra tones on here. Let's bring out this figure a little bit more. This is black, I think, yeah. And adding a little bit of that behind our figure before I meant this on here because I thought, okay, let's add a little bit more contrast before we go to those highlights here. You have dies to cut foam to fit. That is interesting, Candy. Candy, can you expand on that? Um, that's the first time I've heard someone mention that. Dies to cut the foam with. That's fascinating. Um, by the way, Peddler's Den, speaking of those foam things, they sell replacement foam. Not the nibs. You got to keep your plastic nibs, but they sell like little oval pads. Because I just spoke with them about that. I don't know. I think they've mentioned that in the past, but I totally forgot about it. But yeah, some people just, a lot of people are just that have utilized those stylus tools. I forgot what foam they use, or that someone mentioned that they use with their tips. I don't know what foam are you using? candy. Okay, so this is the 0.7 millimeter acrylic white paint pen, okay? This one's an Artistro one, but most of the acrylic paint pens these days seem to work very well. I, I was I've always been saying that I suspect that they are all coming out of the same factory in China, of course. But I do find that there are some differences between some of them. Now, I suspect that they're all coming out of the same factory and either being marketed under different company names to, just so they can grab more market share, or they're just, um, a manufacturer and then different, you know, resellers are, selling them in different types of packaging, different types of sets and things like that. Because they all have the same kind of construction. Just one company might have this translucent barrel. Some of them have an opaque barrel. There's different, and then they just print whatever company, you want on there. Or maybe companies tell them, okay, I want one set of 6 and have it all, gold and silver or something like that. But I guess there are some different brands because there was one brand that I used, and I do like the inks a lot, but they seem to be more fragile of a pen, like that tip. Like I might pull off the cap, and that tip goes flying out. Which you can just reinsert back in there, but uh, I didn't think that should happen. you know, uh, I don't think anyone would. But I don't use them too often. But sometimes, if I want to get a little bit more opacity, their inks seem to be a little bit denser, so I do use them sometimes. You just have to be careful when opening the cap, I guess, or tip or whatever, and never shake it without the tip. I mean, that's something you should do with everything. You always put the cap back on before you shake this up. But especially on one that where the tip could go potentially flying out of there. All right, so okay, here's my highlighting on my figure here. Okay, so I've added some highlight on the side of this columns. I know you can't see it because this is real kind of like tiny detailed work on here. But basically, the sides of objects, okay, that are facing the light, meaning on this column here, it'd be the left side. On this column on this side, it'd be the right side of the column. There's highlights on that. Now the figure that's underneath the lighting would be top lit, okay? So I'm adding some top lighting onto her. Now, if she was completely in shade, I wouldn't, illuminate her. I guess you could put a little bit on there if you want to, uh, but mostly I'm reiterating lighting in the lit areas. Okay, so this design is already kind of top lit, just inherent in the design itself. But then I've added some color to it, so I'm just going and reclaiming some of that. I want to say the white of the paper, but it's not the white of the paper, it's the white of the brilliance ink. So even in some areas where I didn't color in, sometimes that brilliance ink isn't as light white as this. Let me shake this up more. As this acrylic paint here. So this little figure here should stand out a little bit more. See, like they have this kind of drapery on them right here, and there's their arm coming down here, and the side of the face right here, and hair. That's kind of where I'm adding this highlighting in here. I'm sorry if my head's in the way. I have to see on here because sometimes this page is like, there's a lot of glare coming off of it back in my face. I can't see where I'm adding the highlights here. Let me turn it into a little bit of a different angle so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. So naturally, this figure, in terms of this composition, that's the most important kind of focal point. So we want to, apply a decent amount of whatever detailing to that landing point. I want to say this is the landing point, but maybe this is a landing point up there in that holographic area. Okay, I'm picking up some of the colored pencil. These things don't really get clogged from what I've found, but sometimes you can clog them with, like if you're going over colored pencil or the white pigment ink that's applied in there, it can sometimes go into that little white, yeah, I mean not white, but little hole that feeds the application here. So, to get it moving again, you have to unclog it. So just do a little scribble like this. Okay, don't pogo stick it, like that. And you can get it flowing again. But it's not clogging up with its own ink like a lot of the gel pens used to do. There's a lot of this drapery on this figure, this sculpture, and I'm just kind of highlighting the folds. But yeah, she's standing out more now with that tone behind them, the highlighting on them like that. I'm with you, CM. It's what do they call that? Engineered, not engineered, not obsolescence, but I forgot that term that they talk about with products these days. They make them, they engineer them to break down, so that you have to buy a new one. That whole thing about like like candy, like buying washing dryers, every 30 years. They they're not making enough money, from that, unless they're selling replacement parts and all that for that. But that's why people bought those before. But when you buy them, it's like you don't need to buy them. My one washer and dryer, I think, is also from '94, and I've had things that I've had to replace them, like fuses and stuff. But it was really easy for me to just do it myself once with YouTube out there and I find out how to do it. But yeah, when I've had appliance guys, they just say, don't get rid of it. So I've always kept mine. Let's see here. Yeah, gel pen. Now the new gel pens are pretty cool, good these days. If someone has an application for gel pens, and they're extremely inexpensive too. The gel pen set that I have, I don't know if it's Shuttle Art, it might be someone else. 180 pens, 180 colors, 180 refills, and it was like $25 at the time. But the inks I find are thinner than they used to be. And I think that's so that they don't clog on you. Okay. So I find them to be quite excellent in terms of a product. But for me, using the acrylic paint pens, I find these to be more opaque and they flow better on tops of the material that I'm using them on. But if I had some kind of application with gel pens, I was doing writing with them using that ballpoint tip. Although I think the gel pens were conceived these days. A lot of them are conceived for the adult coloring book market, so you can do a lot of coloring with them as well. But I don't know. I had some, and like I said, it was 180 colors. They call it the 360 set. There's probably even bigger sets now. I don't know, 400 maybe. I have no idea, or 200 colors, but the 180 colors and 180 refills. They just worked really, really well. But these just, the acrylic just, I like it better than those. And again, with the ballpoint style of flow, it's just easy for this to transfer onto my scenes over different types of media. With the ballpoint, if I was going over pigment ink or something like that, I'd typically not roll it, but even just dabbing it in there, it would clog up that ballpoint mechanism just too often. Then I'd constantly have to be scribbling, where you get these things flowing and it's flowing really fast or well. All right, I think that is it on the figure. I think the figure's standing out. You need to see what I put in those little highlights on that column right there. I mean, the lighting is kind of coming from there, so I put the highlights on the left side of that column. I can do the same thing on this side too. I think it just makes these little highlights, like doing little things like this. I think it makes the objects a little bit more three-dimensional looking, even if it's like a couple little dots or something like that. Um, in terms of reflected light, it can really add a nice little touch um, to the forms. It's like one of those things. It's like the finishing touches on something. And there's a lot of opportunity for those little finishing touches and highlights on these columns here because there's a lot of little, sculptural forms on them. Kind of, they're supposed to look like they're, standing out from the background. So, all right, here's these little winged, whatever, gargoyles or something like that up here. You can bring a little bit of emphasis onto them if you want to. All right. Now, what I've been doing on a lot of my pieces, I don't know, for some reason, when I have these figures from this new set, these little dreaming figures or sleeping figures or little dancers like this, I've been using those crystals on there a lot. I just find it, I don't know, it seems conducive to the spirit of these things to have these little kind of like floating little blingy orbs, kind of within the scene. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's that I'm always going for kind of scenic depth in things, but I don't always go for like bling or something like that. But it just seems to kind of wake up these pieces a little bit more. So let's see. I was going to show you guys some of it. Right here, here's a scene that I did fairly recently, and I put these little orbs in here, but I was thinking I might add a crystal to those things just to make it a little bit of extra blingy, on here, like that. It's supposed to be like, what do you call that? Lens flares or something like that. But it just, I don't know, it adds a little bit of that three-dimensional kind of aspect to the pieces that I think looks kind of cool. So We have some crystals here, and I don't know, I guess it would bring some of that kind of that jewel like effect in this area right here. So I don't know. And dreams are like little magical things too. Unless all your dreams are like nightmares or something like that. But it kind of goes with the spirit of the quote too. Not that, you know, I didn't have the quote in the other ones, but let's add that down in here. So, all right. Yeah, Signo, Uniball Signos always worked really fantastic with the gel pens. That's the ones that I always recommended that they go with. Let's see, the Sakura gel roll pens. Yeah. I thought I had some. I think there were jelly rolls or something like that, and some of them I hadn't used for like 15 or 20 years, and they're still rolling. The last time I checked, which hasn't been, you know, which it's been a while, but yeah, those ones worked fantastic. Fun foam to cut shapes that fit. Okay, got it. Fun foam. It's coming out, Nicole. I really like how this piece, you know, it needed a lot, you know, like yesterday, it was just kind of the, I don't know, I guess I thought it was a little bit further than midway through, but I guess it was about midway, I guess. Okay, so let's see here. I'm gonna shake this. If you, this acrylic paint is designed to dry really fast, so I'm blabbing away a little bit, so just get it flowing again like that. And let's add in, these are gonna be my little kind of designation points for a crystal. What it represents, I don't know. This person's dreaming, and dreams are kind of, I don't know, they're kind of symbolic of creativity too, you know, and the whatever, the subconscious, right? So let's add some of these in here. I'm gonna have it like all around in here. I don't know if it represents that they're coming from the dreamer, the figure, or if it's coming out of the background, the sky like that. Maybe both. I don't know. And we're gonna do a couple treatments here. I think I'm digging up some of that colored pencil work on there. Or I don't know, maybe I'm putting the white pigment ink back into solution here. Because acrylic, you know, again, like the dye-based inks and the white pigment ink, they're the white brilliance pigment ink are all water-based. I noticed that when I'm adding this white pen down here like this, this one's a lot lighter, but it gets a lot darker looking as it dries on here. This one especially. Maybe because a lot of my media on here is kind of floating on the surface or something like that now at this point in time with all that media that I've already applied. Okay. All right. So let's make some of these orbs kind of a little bit more glowing in spirit or in appearance, whatever, with some of the white brilliance ink here. Let's see. Karen's looking to buy some paint markers. I was all set to buy some Poscas. I haven't heard anything bad about Poscas. I don't really know too much about them in terms of the ink density of them. I might have to get some of those myself. I don't know if they're more opaque than some of the ones that I have. I've been using this cheap set by I forget the name of it, but this one's a graffiti pen right here. These are the 3mm ones. I thought the Poscas were 3mm too. I don't know, unless they have extra fine in the 0.7mm as well. But the Artistra ones that I've been using are the 0.7mm like this. It's a 42 set, and they're all like this, you know. And there's a lot of different values of things like, you know, blues and things. The one thing that they don't have enough of are the browns. I wish there was more brown tones. Like I needed like a dark brown, and you know, I think there was two in here. Sometimes when I grab a pen that I think is brown, it's the gold or the bronze pens in here. I think they give you two gold pens because those are really popular. And then there were two white ones, but I don't know. I've heard, you know, really good things about Poscas. Well, I don't know. Actually, I haven't heard, but I know a lot of people that have said they have them. Okay. I don't think I've seen a lot of usage of like just like 3mm paint pens in general, though. But that would be the thing that I would consider with paint pens is opacity. Some of them are a little bit waterier, I think, and some of them might be have a higher pigment to binder, which would be water ratio. Okay, so that would be good. Hello, Star. Good to see you. Yeah, yeah. So we're gonna go crystal crazy. I don't know if that's the right. Maybe that would be the right amount on this one. There's just a lot of them. I don't know. Some of them. There's different sizes of these crystals, and wow, some of these little white dots really kind of faded out here. But in this case, I'm going to be using them more for kind of just guides for the crystals here. But you see this, right here? See, if you add even just white with a little bit of this glowing thing like that, I mean, maybe they represent fireflies just like that or something. I don't know, you know, but it's just kind of a little whimsical type of thing. Like Disney animated movies have these things like this in like little forested areas a lot. If you watch the movie Brave, I think they were wisps or something like that. Or if you watch that the live action Maleficent with Angelina Jolie in that kind of enchanted forest, there's all these kind of glowing little orbs floating around, and it really lends itself to the spirit of I don't know, kind of like magic or whimsy. Um, but it's also just a really fantastic kind of a textural element and moving element in the scenes. You know, I do these little orb things like this in this piece like this. And of course, everything's two-dimensional on here. And it's not, you know, it's still, but you put these little things in the air like that are kind of hovering around like that. And it just, there's a little bit of more of a visual sense of kind of movement within the piece like this. Plus, one of the things that people don't talk about too often, you know, because we're thinking about objects within, you know, a given space. We're doing compositions and whatnot, but you can have this kind of, there's this thing about kind of the visual path that someone takes anytime we are looking at something or someone's looking at our pieces, okay? So I was mentioning it earlier, but like on something like this, when you're using holographic papers, they're going to look at the paper. Now, if the whole thing is exposed, you know, they'll probably look all over the place like that. But on something like this, the visual path would be something like, this is going to get the most amount of attention because it's, you get this changing color thing, and, you know, someone's going to be looking at this in light, in a lit area, otherwise they're not going to be able to see it, right? But they'll look at this right here, I think, and then I'm thinking there's columns right here. They'll follow back down around like this way or this way down to the figure, because animals and living objects and things like that tend to be kind of a secondary type of, or a focal point, okay? But I think it's secondary to holographic, surfaces. But then they'll go up here and here, okay? But then if you have these little things like this, then the viewer's eye kind of goes around like this. So what I'm getting at is if you kind of create a more opportunity for kind of a visual exploration and path, then instead of just going from here to here, they might look at all this around in here, but then, they'll go all around in here. So you're kind of creating like a longer visual ride for someone, when you add in, little types of features like that, for as one of my instructors used to say or said once, but I always remembered it. It's like rewarding someone for kind of closer inspection, further inspection. You might have like a poster or something like that that's supposed to get someone's attention, or a piece. But if you can kind of keep their attention and kind of adding in little details or surprise, little hidden things, or secondary things. It doesn't have to be hidden. You're rewarding them for doing so. So it's like if you give a card to someone, maybe they can enjoy it kind of on, more of a whatever, first viewing or something like that. But then, if they go back to it once in a while and say, oh, I didn't notice this or this or this, it's like a movie or something like that. The really great ones might be where you just enjoy it, but then I think if you watch it with repeated viewing, if you notice, oh, I never noticed that, that's always kind of fun, to have those kind of things kind of popping up like that. And that's where these little types of things come into play, I think. So, okay, so those are orbs like that, but didn't that kind of bring it to life a little bit more down there? And then we'll add on our some of these crystals right here. Okay, this is what I need to do on this one. I need to pull out these crystals before I add this glue down here. Because sometimes when, I get these crystals down here, I'm kind of trying to busy like flipping them over so that I can utilize them. And then the glue is like drying. All right, so let's see. Let's grab some of these like this. I'll go with it. I'll keep it kind of subtle like that. I'm not going to use all those, but the ones that are kind of flipped up like that, I can grab and just put the other ones back in here after when I'm done. So we'll go with that size right there. And then we'll go with, let me see. Okay, these ones are, I wasn't sure if these ones were the same size. These ones are a little bit larger. Let's put these ones over here. Okay, I think, whatever, 8 out of 10 of them were flipped upside down, so let's go like that. And the next size up maybe gets a little bit too big. Maybe not. Is there such thing as a too big of a crystal on something? Yeah. Sometimes I've added too big of a one. It was a little bit distracting. But if I had larger forms on there, I would use, a larger one maybe. Hello, Linda. Just got home and missed it. Hello. We were waiting for you. All of us were waiting for you and waiting for you. We tried calling you. And we just had to start, Linda. Okay. So maybe I'll do this side first and I'll do this side second, just so that glue doesn't dry. Someone in one of these live streams recommended, I got basically 2 recommendations for glue. And thank you for that. That was a while back, but I was using this other type of glue that was a pain to put on there to apply. And then it wasn't as strong, so sometimes I'd have to re-glue something later on. It was a hassle. All right, so let's see here. I'm using my Marvy Jewel Picker. Someone on the Facebook, one of the Facebook groups recommended this to me, I think. Which makes it a lot easier than by hand. Or with my finger. I think it came with like a, this thing came with like a like a colored pencil, like a white colored pencil to grab your jewels. I guess I don't have to add a jewel to every one of these little orbs, but I guess if I've already added the glue down, I might as well. Or maybe, let's see. And let's keep adding it on there. Since I added that little drop of glue to these areas. Oh, that's not glue there. Okay, so, all right. That's what that looks like right out there. I don't know if it's subtle. I wouldn't call it subtle at all, but I don't think it's too loud. But I need to make my little kind of diffusion a little bit, or my little glow a little bit wider, I'm finding. Because the white pigment ink kind of, it dried really dark, I'm finding, so I don't get that glowing kind of part here. I don't know if I can add it over the top of that and just kind of wipe it off the top of that. Yeah, get your glow first. Don't do it post crystal application, I think. All right, I need to get these areas glowing a little bit stronger here. So here, I'll add another couple of them out here that are really strong in terms of that glow. Again, that's not going to stand out like that. It looks kind of extreme right there, but it's just, like I said, it's drying really dark on this, which isn't bad because it blends into the background, but keep that in mind. I always mention that when you're applying that white pigment ink over the top of something that's darker, is you have to apply more than you think you're going to need because it will dry darker. Which you can, just go back in there and retouch, but these ones are going to have the crystal already applied to it, so you got to take care of that ahead of time. Okay. One of the things I had to ask people about after getting that thing is it said to not use that little pin to, the glue instructions were not to use that as like the stopper, but a lot of people just said, oh, they use that for their thing and they don't have any problems with it, and I haven't. I think some people were saying maybe sometimes it gets stuck or something like that. But then they just, they use that pin and just, clear it out with that, no problem. It takes a second. I haven't had that happen. All right, so let's see. Going with multiple sizes for a little bit of a scale change with the crystals here, the orbs, the dream orbs, we'll call them. think, oh, that glue dried right there from that earlier application. Okay, so this is what this is looking like here. All right, our little dreamer. Like so. All right. Let's get these back in here. These crystals are clear. I do have some colored ones. I think I bought blue, but an amethyst. But I've just been mostly using clear on my pieces. Sometimes I'll slip in like a multicolored one or something, you know, or a different colored one with the theme of the piece. But I don't know. I tend to like the clear the best because it has the most amount of contrast, I think. So, okay, so this is what this kind of looks like that. The crystals, you know, they're kind of subtle in just regular light, but then I like the crystals because, you know, in terms of a dimensional medium, because if you hold it at, you know, this is really glary right there where they really stand out like that, but, you know, they can almost kind of blend in with the background a little bit, you know, in some angles because they're just not reflecting light, you know, at certain angles like that, so... But he adds a little bit of a dimensional, whatever aspect to it. All right, so let's see. I'm looking for my little flock of birds. There's certain stamps that I usually keep right on my desk, like the tiny rocks and a couple others, you know, sedge filler. But a little flock of birds might be kind of interesting, like right over here. I don't know, maybe not. But I think it would add to that dreamy kind of feel to it. All right, so on this one right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to format it onto a firm piece of stock. This is a half-page scene, and I'm going to put a border around it, but I'm not going to do it in this video here because when I get to this, oh, here it is right here. When I get to this size of card like this, I'm finding that I like using spray adhesive on the back like this. I guess I could use the adhesive aspect of the printable vinyl. This is sticker paper after all, but sometimes I have more control over it because this sticker paper is just so aggressive. If you just kind of lay it down like incorrectly, it's like if you try to get that off of there, it is really hard to remove, which is, I guess it's good because people are sticking, you know, like these vinyl things, they might stick it to like a mug or something like that where you don't want it to be coming off. You know, different objects like that. They're doing all kinds of stuff, you know. People with these vinyl like cutting machines and things like that too. You know, they're sticking the vinyls over everything. They're labeling things, and you need that permanent adhesive. Maybe I'll get it on here. Maybe I'll just do it on here. I'll just glue this or sticker it down on this one. And then I'll spray adhesive this part to a larger border here. Let's see. Yeah, they are kind of nuts sometimes, Jen, working with that size of crystal. So, I don't know. Like I said, this thing really helped me with that. And then just putting a bunch of them down. Like, I used to kind of like try flipping them over, but I don't know. I'm a slow learner. Why not just pour out a bunch of them? Just put the ones that, you know, that aren't flipped over, you know, right side up back in there. It only took me like like 2 years to figure that out. Glad you like the white specks, Karen. It kind of brings it to life a little bit. Yeah, the clouds, Linda, we added the clouds in there. That was the first thing that I did on this piece. It needed kind of a little bit more of a textural contrast between the now I know the trick to doing this. People say, okay, what you do is you lay this down and pull it off like that. But sometimes I like getting the whole thing off and just laying it down. Well, let's do it. Let's do a little bit of both here. Yeah, the clouds were one of the first things that we did on here today, and it really helped. I wasn't quite sure, if it would, if the clouds, how it would print onto the vinyl or onto the Brilliance ink that was already applied, and I found that it worked just fine. And then I don't know, just layering other media on here worked really well. It worked better than expected. Multiple layers. I guess specifically multiple layers. I knew that this vinyl could take a lot of stuff. Now, one of the things I did too on this one, I really slathered it with a lot of Brilliance ink as a base coat. Maybe that's why I was able to do more things, with the dye-based blending on here, and then all of the colored pencil and whatnot. I'm not sure. The printable vinyls, like I said, they're still, I'm kind of getting the feel of it, but I'm still learning a lot about it in terms of its capabilities. I wouldn't say with every piece, because I don't, try new things every time I'm doing it, but on this one I've tried a few things in terms of kind of expanding the capabilities of it. But this really feels great. I love it when you kind of mount these pieces onto another piece like that. Look at that color like that too now. So I didn't retain a lot of the holographic surface. You can see where it's all been blocked out in here. Maybe I should have left a little bit more down here. I think it would have been cool to have some of that kind of showing through some of these clouds in here, but next, we'll do that on the next one. Half sea creatures representing earth, wind, fire, earth, water, wind, fire, and spirit. Awesome. I was say representing earth, wind, and fire, the band. Let's see. Hello, Debbie. And hello, Paul. Can't find these people images on the site for Love or Money. They're in the nature sets. It's nature set number 30. So you can look under unmounted. Unmounted. They're not sold individually. They're in the sets. They're kind of real specific images, so I didn't release them individually. Now, if someone only likes one, or two of them, that's not good. But if you like, a handful of them, it's like you're getting a bunch of them for free anyway. Then, from buying them individually, I'm talking about. All right, so I'm just giving this, I just give it a little bit of a border like that with white, like that. I give it this white little border right here. Kind of brings out the detailing and things like the crystals a little bit more. Okay. If you've just joined in on this or haven't seen this before, the thing that we're using is the printable vinyl sticker paper, okay? Printable holographic vinyl sticker paper. Not the holographic sticker paper or the holographic vinyl. It's the printable one, okay? The printable one just has like an extra layer of, I don't know, maybe emulsion or something on the surface that allows the transferring of inkjet water-based printer ink onto the surface for, to have a printable surface there. So that being said, it allows us to use the same type of water-based media on top of it, to not only transfer but to adhere. I like a lot of things about the printable vinyls, but one of the biggest things is that for me, in terms of a finish on here, I spray seal just about everything that I do in terms of like cardstocks, and on things like foils and things like this, I have to spray seal a lot of the media that I apply on here because it doesn't stick. But the printable vinyls, I guess I could spray seal it. I guess it might bring out some different colors, but I kind of like the finish on these just as is. I don't feel that I have to seal these off with anything. And I just like it as is. And then, okay, now there were certain things that were happening on here as I was doing this piece, like with the Brilliance ink. It was like drawing those little glowing little, the perimeter to these little orbs in here. It was drawing much darker, but pretty much now, see what I see right here, I think it just stays this way. If you've worked with, a lot of dye-based inks before, and if you don't spray seal them, sometimes you go back to them like the next day and you take a look at them and it's like, it seems like it really faded out. A lot of times it didn't fade out though. It just kind of dries with a kind of a dull sheen on the top. It's almost like a layer of lime or something like that. It's not lime, but it's just whatever is in the binder of those inks. It just dries a little bit duller looking. You spray seal it and it penetrates that surface, and it can look much deeper again, like a freshly stamped thing. But these things, I'm sure that this is pretty much what this is going to look like, tomorrow or whatever. So it's fixed a little bit more. All right, so I'm not. This doesn't look too bad on this 8.5 by 11. This 8.5 by 11 is a little bit maybe too big. I can add another border on here like blue or something like that. Or, it'd be interesting. God, I don't know if I want to use like a whole sheet of it, but if you go with that same type of thing, but with a little bit of a larger border out here, like that. Now, I don't want to cut out like a window like that so I can utilize that. I would just use like a whole sheet. I don't think I want to do that though, because it's like wasting just to have a little bit of an extra board. Not this one, but yeah, that would be crazy right there. But a little bit more of that shimmer on here might be kind of, I don't know, maybe it would detract from it. But that's kind of, this is, roughly what this is going to look like. And again, what I'm going to use is, this is such a large piece right here. I can use my tape runner on it, but I find that using the spray adhesives gives it a much, I don't know, a more complete, whatever, bind or whatever, to the surface. So yeah, I might go with this one at 8.5 by 11 like that. But again, that's a little bit, maybe we do need like a secondary thing, or maybe like what about the Star Dream lapis lazuli if I still have some of it. I might have went through all that, but like a blue iridescent paper on the border right here might be kind of interesting. But again, sometimes you don't want to do that, if there's something kind of a little bit more exciting in here, unless it brings more attention to it, it might kind of detract from it. But anyway, okay, so I'll figure that out. I'll see what papers I have. A lot of papers I'm kind of starting to run a little bit low on. So I'll figure it out. But Shimmery Dreams. I don't know. That's not the name of this one, but all right, let's see here. Okay, I think that pretty much looks like it. A lot of times I have to re-expose, but that, what I'm looking at on screen right here is pretty much what I see right here in front of me. So you can see these little shimmery little crystals on there. I thought they stood out a little bit more, right when I put them in, but see like that, it just kind of brings those little extra things to life like that. Yeah, you can do crystals. I didn't have a bunch of it, but the things like like glitter stickles, that type of thing, that could be used out here too. In place of or in addition to, you can add little shimmery types of things, here and there. Or if you had, like the wink of Stella Clear might be kind of interesting on this form, like in the illuminated areas of the figure. That might be kind of interesting to have a little bit of shimmer, because I don't think it would be really obvious, but held at an angle, you'd have some of this shimmery light kind of reflecting off the surface. That's not the way kind of shimmery light would work, but it might be kind of interesting as a, textural color, kind of addition in here to do something like that. I know a lot of you probably have a lot more types of options in there that might, come to mind as far as, I don't know, finishing little blingy touches on here too. A silver pen might have been interesting too, to add on little highlights. A silver pen doesn't look light, I use highlights with white in here, but sometimes the silver, you can add it into some areas where it's actually a little bit darker in certain light, but then if you hold it at a certain angle, that silver is reflective, so it's lighter than the white, which is kind of interesting too. So yeah, I don't know. Paul, did you find the people? I'll have links to all that stuff in these videos after I format the videos a little bit more. I never know what I'm going to be using on these cards, so I don't kind of put it in the listing ahead of time. So I do that later. Glad you like the card, Debbie. Think that they're found. Yeah. Harold answered there for them. Yeah, and Linda. Oh yeah. I was wondering if you got your stamps yet, Linda. It might take a little bit longer. It's taken a little bit longer. The mail's taking a little bit longer these days. I'm finding. I think, at least here domestically. Hello, Annie W. Good to see you. Yeah, I talk about your mirror cards sometime, Annie. I like that comment of I tell people about your customers, buying like multiples of the mirror cards. This would be kind of interesting in a mirror card, but I think I was telling people that I don't do like a mirror card like vertical like this because there's too much of that. But can you imagine this little figure here, like in a little reflection pool down below? Let's just see. Let's get the gist of what that might kind of look like here. But see that right there? But see, I don't go vertical. I go horizontal on mirror cards because this distance right here is a little bit too extreme. But see that right here? If you had like this little, like what do you call it? A reflection pool for the Greco-Roman stuff like that, that mirroring of that figure would be kind of interesting. So see that, let's see, what angle is it right there? See, if you did something like this though, she would be better to have like a hard contrast up here, a much darker area up here. But just in terms of the columns and things like that, and a reflection pool would be kind of interesting like that. I'll have to do that again. Using maybe these forms down here, I'd put her a little bit lower so that she's reflecting kind of in a lower area of it. When you're doing reflection cards, the objects that are closer to the reflected surface are going to be much stronger. And then as you move up here, you can see it like this area up here, is kind of really obscure down there. So that's why I don't go vertical like this on reflection cards. When you're going like this, see like this, the whole card up here is reflecting down there, no problem. So you just can't go too high with it away from it like that. But yeah. I'd have to try that, something like that again, with the reflection cards like that. But I think this composition right here would be really, conducive for a I mean, anything could be, but what you do see in a lot of gardens are those reflection pools, right? Like in a, what do they call them? Like formal gardens, reflection pools, they call it. Yeah. What about using the cheaper holographic cardstock as a border? Oh, the Recollections one, right? From Michael's. Possible. I just don't. One of the things that I wouldn't want on a border right here is anything that's brighter or more saturated than this. This foil right here. It's really it's kind of it's like a pastel, wouldn't you say? So I'd want kind of a more. I think I'd want a lighter, or something that's just not as strong as that. And I think this is the Recollections one right here. Let's take a look right here and see. Like that. Yeah, it'd be a little bit too much. This is more powerful than that right there. But if you went like, let me see. And okay, so this one right here too, against the white, we can't even see the white anymore. So it'd have to be something darker than this. I don't know. I'll play around with it. Oh, well, there's the blue one. There's that blue holographic, cheap cardstock. But I don't know if I don't want to use a big piece of blue like that just for the border because I love that blue and it comes out of the multicolor pack. So I don't know. Anything for the scene, right? You know what I mean? If it makes the scene better, you're supposed to use it. But like I cherish that blue out of those multicolor packs too much, to do a scene on just for itself. I might have to let me change the exposure here a little bit. Yeah, that's I think that's more along the lines. It was being a little bit reflective. Okay, so that's what the card looks like a little bit more so in person right here. Let's see. Let's see. Laura likes it just with the black. This looks black here, but it's my cheap chrome coat blue. Do you guys see that blue right there? It looks black. This is black right here. But it's like a really super deep navy. I love this stuff because you can use it with any kind of color because even if it's, different than the blue, you can use it with oranges and it looks fine because it's dark enough to be practically black like that. But yeah, I don't know. I might just end up mounting it on here just as is like that. Audition the Star Dream cardstock. I'll take a look at it. Yeah. You can play around with these types of things too. I've seen it where things are like breaking the frame too. I don't think I'm going to do it on here, but you can have some of these orbs, like one or two of them, like out here, like they've broken the frame and they've like come out from the background like that. That'd be kind of interesting. I would do it. I would play around with something like that, the breaking of the frame. I think if this was smaller, and I wanted to add a more kind of dynamic element to it, maybe where there were stronger light streams or something. It'd be kind of interesting to do something like this, now that I think about it. When you're doing those crepuscular rays, kind of like this type of thing. But it'd be kind of interesting on some one time to play around with this. So after you mount this up, right? And again, I wouldn't do it on a big scene like this, but like a quarter page scene or something like this. But then you have the crepuscular rays coming out here onto the frame out here. So it's like coming out of the, whatever, the frame or something like that. I'll have to play around with that a little bit more. I haven't seen people playing around with that type of thing, concept. If I don't remember it. I mean, they might have done it, but I can't remember it now. Or you can have like these orbs coming out here too, but you can have like a stronger light beam like that. So potentially it could look real kind of playful, if anything. It should look more three-dimensional if you can get it kind of relatively seamless looking like that. I think that would be kind of cool. Yeah, the verticals don't work too well, Annie. They're just with reflection cards, you can see that reflection of the sides of the card too much. So I usually put those things down there, and it's just too hard to block it out. I think the horizontals or just things that I mean, I guess it could be a vertical, but if it's just not too tall of a vertical where you're losing the imagery definition too much in there. Look at these little things like this. So you put your hand over this like this, and it really creates that little sparkly touch, across those little crystals like that. That's kind of fun. I guess it's like that in the holographic too. When you put that shading on there, it's a different color like that. But look at those little crystals like that. It's almost look like, you're almost creating kind of a little like an LED type of you know type of effect, like blinking lights or something like that. But it's not it's not battery operated. But that's what's really fun about these kind of reflective types of whatever elements in there and surfaces like that. It changes, with whatever lighting is being reflected in there. So I think it kind of puts these pieces in motion a little bit more. So, like I was saying, kind of visual path and everything like that. I might have went a little bit crazy with these crystals on here, but I don't know. As far as the process goes, we're supposed to be having fun, right? And going a little bit nuts, I think is a good thing, done in the spirit of whatever, creativity and, I don't know, whatever, no holds barred. All right, so anyway, that is the finished piece here. Was a two-part piece, and I was glad that I had kind of overnight to think about it because I was debating on whether or not I wanted to add these clouds in here. And even today I was thinking, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some contrast in here and define that, put a little bit of shading into the white pigment ink, but I think the cloud cumulus worked better on this one. It added that soft element to go against those, hard marble kind of structures, very angled structures, and it just kind of softened up, the entire thing. So lighter versions in here, clouds in here, and they were the same lighter versions out here if you just kind of joined in after I did it. But then I toned in a lot of these areas out here, and then I just re-stamped the clouds in black over here. But it was kind of like a blotted off black, so it was more of a gray, because that light blue over in these areas that are darker, a little bit of a border kind of vignette applied to this surface here, they didn't show up anymore. So all you have to do is just re-stamp them. So there was a lot of things that on this piece, it went as expected, okay? But if you haven't used some of these types of things before, I just know what people are going to be saying if they did it themselves. But, I run into the same types of issues, but I just kind of fill it in afterwards, so I'm not worried about it. But I just know from experience from teaching a lot of workshops. So, okay, so what I'm getting at here is, with these columns right here, I stamped it a little bit high so there was space in between the column and the marble platform. But that would bother a lot of people, like, oh, they didn't match it up good, okay? And for me, I just know that I'm going to fill it in later anyway. And so I just filled it in with some, colored pencil and whatnot. And plus, it got darker over there anyway, so you're not going to see this like a, 60th of an inch space gap in between. Some of these, this one right here, this column and this column, I didn't stamp them even because I'm just eyeballing them. Wasn't using a platform. I guess if you had a platform, you can get it, positioned, exactly where you want it to go. You can have that stamp on there and just move your paper over and then just stamp it again. It's going to be perfectly kind of parallel. But mine, mine's wobbling in a little bit like that. And this one's stamped higher than the other one. But you just kind of fill it in with those colored pencils and you fill it in with some tone. Like I said, the angles on these ones are a little bit skewed, but then I just add these kind of foreground elements around in here to soften up, or to obscure kind of a cricket. I got that platform stamp relatively straight without any problem. But you know what I mean? If it's up or, a little bit or down, you don't want it skewed 45 degrees, but you're not going to be doing that. But you can obscure those types of things with, objects in the foreground like that. So I've added these things down here, all of our impressions, our initial impressions like that. And if there were little types of issues like that that went on to it, they are now behind a lot of media. They're behind dye-based inks. What else? Colored pencils on here. So they're buried underneath that. Then I have these other types of hanging, little branches and things like that in here that are pushing the marble columns back another layer. And then I put these little orbs in here, so that's another layer that represents something in front of those columns. So you're pushing these objects back in space. So they're not like the things that are, right in your face as they were when you first stamped them out. So what I'm getting at is like, don't worry about little things like that, just kind of you obscure those things and you put them behind more and more layers of color and media. And I don't think people are going to, so unless you watched that video that I did where I stamped everything out, I don't think someone's going to look at this and say, oh, I can see where that is. Maybe if someone's like extremely anal or something like that, they're going to be looking, at those really, detailed areas like that. I don't think they would really notice it, those types of, I don't know, whatever compositional issues in there like that. And this figure right here wasn't standing out as much as I wanted to, so you just kind of color it in the background behind her, and then you bring her out with some highlights and whatnot. So, yeah. So just utilize certain types of methodology like that. And I do that with all of my scenes, not just the Greco-Roman ones, okay? But just keep with it and work through your different processes and stuff like that and allow the scene to kind of, come together. And don't kind of sweat like the minutia like that, because it's, overall, it's the overall kind of, I don't know, whatever end result. And, if you're kind of worried about things on like step number 2, you might not get to step number whatever 10 or something like that in your process, and those are the things that are going to be the things that bring it all together anyway, and be the focal points of the scenes, where those smaller things are so far back in the past of the card in terms of time, but as visually too, that it's not really going to matter like that. All right. Thanks so much. Glad you liked the live, CM Hawkins. It's always great having you all. If anyone else is on checking these vids out, you're not commenting, great having you on as well. Thanks so much for joining in. And yeah, I have fun on these vids too. You guys get me thinking about all kinds of other things with your comments and stuff like that. I tend to journey into the past with a lot of like long-time stampers too. You get me thinking about a lot of other things sometimes that I haven't thought about in a while, or new things too, so I'm learning a lot from all of you as well. I always say that, there's a lot more, people, I'm talking about like live demonstrations and stuff and whatnot. I'd learn a ton of things, especially things that are out there in terms of recommended media and how to use it too. So thanks so much for all of that, and your ideas, and I don't know, kind of inspiring kind of the direction of that a lot of these scenes are taking during those live streams. So it's really fun. All right, so have a great rest of evening, whatever time it is for you. If Australia's still in the house, good morning. Have a great rest of morning. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you all in the future live stream. This one was really fun. I learned a lot on this one. Thanks again.